Hey guys, this one is going to be purely on, I guess, just simplifying some of these moves, right? I think what I want to do is just highlight a few things that's happened. So, in the last maybe month, 6 weeks, I've been working obviously on the back of publishing the new book. So, this is out the end of this month. And I guess I've been seeing a couple of different things not only on social media, but just in the general sense, right? I think the markets as a whole are all massively hyperextended. We've got all-time highs with the stock market, gold, etc., etc., etc. And I think there's still a lot of people struggling with making money, right? And this is kind of like mind blowing for me in terms of the almost the lack of understanding, but also the lack of wanting to learn. And I think this is where I guess some of these processes, especially the mechanical side, these can be simplified versions, right? Now, this isn't something that you know I I, I use often. This isn't something that I use. This is in conjunction with a couple of other tools. These are the things that I've covered, obviously, in the first book. And what I want to do is just kind of touch on how you can make this kind of simple on yourself, and how making money, especially in forex, is a relatively easy thing to do once you've got the kind of the foundation, right? So if you're not really familiar with some of the terms, again, go kind of view Baby Pips. This is all free. If you followed us, you followed me, you know what Paul has posted. I know there's some terms that you were, unfamiliar with. There's some terms that you might not understand. I know where we get into the advanced kind of Wyckoff and Elliott moves, and understanding where liquidity sit and kind of why. A lot of the things we get is, how did you know this was a level? How did you know you get a rejection from that level? These are the things that we teach, right? So from a giving away free on YouTube, it's a very difficult, kind of tricky thing to understand where people don't understand, right? And I think this is kind of part of the challenge as an educator online when you're giving free content. It's if people are not willing to spend the time to learn and understand the kind of the acronyms and the logic, then they're going to struggle with the kind of the juicy stuff, all right? So what I want to do is I want to just simplify this as kind of quickly and as easily as I physically can, right? So what I want to do, I'm going to look at euro, and I'm going to kind of just mark up very quick in terms of some kind of key levels, right? So first things first, we've had a couple of moves, we've had a couple of kind of play arounds and kind of dance arounds, right? Now, overall, I'm looking quite locally, although this is a daily time frame, right? I'm only going to be using three time frames overall. I'm only going to be looking at where the liquidity is sitting and kind of why the liquidity is sitting there, right? So clear as day, what I can see from this year is we've had pretty simply a sweep, right? The reason that this is a sweep rather than a change of character or anything else is that in essence, we've literally failed to kind of close above these prior highs, right? These moves there did not take out and sustain these prior highs, right? Now, this is something I've talked about in Bitcoin. I've showed and expressed, I've explained, why if we went from the bottom like we did, why we would only see, the same kind of triple top type of scenario. These sweeps are something that is used to obtain liquidity from people that obviously don't understand this, right? So, in the grand scheme of things, right, level one I'm looking at is this kind of sweep zone, sweep area, right? So this is some kind of rejection, all right? We then have a couple of other internal type moves, right? This one here obviously is another play, right? And I'll explain this one in a second. And then lower than this, we've actually got this one as well, right? So what I'm doing is I'm just drawing some lines at the moment, right, to give you a way that you can use this kind of over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? Now, in the grand scheme of things, there's going to be liquidity sitting above and below these particular points, right? So, on a daily point of view, right, the areas of interest for me are kind of simply this, right? There's another really small one in here which could touch on if you really wanted to. Right? I'll tell you what, I'll make this as a smaller style line, right? So, in theory, we're in a similar situation right now here as we were with the sweep above, right? Unless we get a close below this level, we got to still assume that the overall swing is currently bullish. Right? So this is quite hard to comprehend, especially on a bigger time frame for many of you guys. This is why I really want to simplify this. I really want to make this video quite short. So excuse me, obviously, if I am kind of rushing through this. And if it's something that you don't understand, right, I'll be making some more videos on the same kind of topic, the same theme, the same general idea. And as I said, right, this isn't something that you would use or I would use kind of standalone, although it can be. And I know a lot of people do use this. Some people will refer to this as things like smart money and this, that, and the other. And we can add various things and various aspects to all of these levels, right, to kind of make this into some smart money kind of concept. But it's not just smart money, right? I've talked about things like the volume profiles. I've covered, covered several posts. Um, this one here, Bitcoin Smart Money, for example. I've talked about the reason behind it, right? And I think this is where a lot of educators actually fail. They kind of know that there's something there, but kind of don't really understand the mechanics behind what's actually there. Once you understand that the market's only seeking liquidity, right? What we got to do as a trader is just identify where those liquidity pockets are sitting, right? So at this particular point, all I've done is on the daily time frame, I've gone, okay, well, we kind of bullish. We've kind of swept the level. We're having a rejection from the level. And unless we close below the prior level of liquidity, right, I still have this kind of bullish intent kind of in mind, right? So what I want to then do is I want to drop down a time frame, right? Now, I said earlier, I'm just going to use 3 time frames. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use the daily, I'm going to use the 4-hour, I'm going to use potentially the 15-minute or the 1 hour, right? Now, this is a personal thing depending on you, depending on what kind of time frames you're looking for, what type of setups you're looking for, and what are the tools you add to this as a strategy, right? What I want to do today is just give you kind of the direction, right, rather than the kind of the nitty gritty. The nitty gritties will come in the next couple of videos, but for now, this is just learn to trade in the quickest way you physically can, right? And I think again, this is where a lot of people kind of overcomplicate it. All I've done right now is identified liquidity on a much higher time frame, right? I'm now done on a 4-hour time frame, and what I'm looking for is a similar kind of view, right? We've had this kind of rejection type move. We've come in and we've taken the liquidity obviously lower, right? Now, although we've kind of tapped into the liquidity there, we've really failed on a higher time frame to kind of take it, right? So in the grand scheme of things, we've got to then identify what's kind of underneath this, right? What's kind of next? Now, clear as day, we've got this level here, right? We can then start looking across to the left, and we can start saying, well, is there anything else sitting there that's going to give me some kind of clue, some kind of idea in terms of where we could potentially be targeting, right? Now, again, the last sell before you buy move sitting in here, right? There's an obvious kind of play there. So this right now is pretty much acting like a magnet. Let me just put something in there just to kind of explain, or put some kind of star or something there, right? This is acting right now pretty much as a magnet to price, right? This is where price is wanting to be kind of pulled towards. Now, what we're looking at is how can we identify whether this is going to come down to this level, even down lower, and then reject from this level, or whether we break clean through the level. So the answer is simply step down a time frame again, right? Right now, we are in a bullish move up with a 4-hour pullback. We've had, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. It's not until this particular point, right? And this is where you're going to see this particular high. We fail to make a new high, and then we come on through and take these lows. This basically is a change of character, right? And it's no more complicated than that, right? That's, literally all we're looking for. So we've now had this change of character, right? Which means in the grand scheme of things, we've had something like this, right? I'm going to come straight to the swing top, and we've come on down, okay? Now, at this particular stage, we've broken through, we've changed the character, we've broken that structure, we've done all the things that smart money moves will talk about. And what we've actually gone and done is we found the first layer of liquidity. We haven't seen an aggressive reaction or rejection from this level, right? Which means the likelihood is we're not really done yet, right? And this is why I think we come down a little bit lower, right? Now, at this particular point, we're going to be looking for, all the good stuff in terms of Wyckoff and so on, so on, all the master pattern type moves, any way that we can identify why the price is likely to change. But as I said earlier, that's kind of for another video, right? So with that being said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to step down to the smaller time frame again, and I'm going to use, let's use a 15-minute, right? I think a lot of you guys would rather the smaller time frame stuff. I think personally I'd use an hour. I go 4 hour, 1 hour daily as my kind of 3-step combo, right? On this type of move, this type of strategy. So what I'm looking for now is on this 15-minute time frame, right? I'm looking for any kind of clues, any kind of hints to say, why do we come down to areas that we could come down, to and from, right? So we literally have had, again, similar kind of move, right? We've had this move down, we've had a move back up, right? Clear as day, we then change that character to the downside, right? That ultimately was confirmed in and across there, right? It looks like we've got, a pretty nice little platform that we cross over on. I'll change this to something like red just to make it obvious and easy, right? So in the grand scheme of things, we are knowing full well that the 4 hour time frame is down. The daily time frame is technically still up. We've got now a 15-minute time frame still pointing to the downside, right? Now, again, we can use things like fibs and actually get an understanding of whether this is a 1618 or whether it's a 1.217, for example. And overall, a lot of these things kind of overlap with each other, and a lot of these things are kind of interconnected. Again, many educators, many influencers, these guys will only know what they know. They're not looking at how the dynamic of all of these things kind of come together, right? So again, I've shown things like the fixed volume profile, right? And I'll just show this again for now. If you look at what we've done volume wise, we've got a lot of volume sitting here, right? We've got very little volume sitting there, right? We've had obviously a nice little gap down. So, we've got definitely a volume spike followed by a volume spike, right? Clear as day. Now, if I put that towards the end, you're going to see a big spike here, probably the point of control, and you're going to see another big spike there, right? In terms of where we are. So, this is exactly what we're looking for, right? These types of ideas, these types of techniques and tools, because they're all interconnected, understanding the logic behind the why is going to make an awful lot more sense when it comes to how you use them, why you use them, and where you use them. All right. So we know full well that we've got, liquidity sitting up and above this level, right? So I'm just going to draw a box around there just to make this pretty easy. I'll change that to back to white, just to keep it clean. So we know that we've got liquidity up there, right? We know that we've had this kind of big move down, and we know we've got liquidity, to the downside line. So there's an obvious trade kind of starting to align here for me. And the obvious trade is going to look something along the lines of long position, right? I can come anywhere in this kind of range, anywhere in this region. I think we could easily take it back up, right? Even if I only said back to the median level, right, rather than all the way to the top, right? This type of position, right? And then obviously a stop loss, I'm going to put down just a little bit below, right? There's a 4.5% trade on a 15-minute time frame, right? And that's without going into the nitty gritties. That's without going into a lot of detail, right now. This is the type of thing that I'm setting. Now, I'm not just gonna, set the target and say, oh well, let's just leave it where it is and see how we go. I want to see the character change on these smaller time frames. We know the daily's pointing up and we know the 4 hours pointing down. So what I really want is I want to understand where that 4 hour changes back to the upside, right? And if it doesn't change back to the upside, then obviously that continuation to the downside, it becomes more plausible. We could see, a fall straight through this. So it's the change of character equals the confirmation, and the confirmation equals the change on the higher time frame, the 4 hour, for the potential entry, right, the potential setup. So right now, what I'm looking for is knowing that we are still likely to the downside, right, until we clear some kind of liquidity, right? I want to look for any other possible options that gives me more clues to the downside, right? So we've clearly got another level sitting in there. I'll make this maybe gray. We've got another level sitting in there. Right? So what I'm really looking for is I'm really looking for something that kind of fuels, right? I'm not sure if there's any news out today. I want something that kind of fuels us to at least this point, right? At this point, it becomes kind of questionable as to whether we bounce back, right? But my bigger bias is that we come down one more time first before we actually take that move to the upside, right? Now, in this particular sense, given that we've only now started to see a change in this particular character, right, I also have two smaller options, which means I can drop down a time frame again, or what I can do is I can take a trade potentially on the breach of this high here, right? That's less, you know, it's less confirmation, right? It's less of an impressive trade. It's yeah, it's just it's not a trade for me, right? But you could if you wanted, right? Because if you break this particular level, you know that the next round of liquidity is up much higher. You know that we've got some kind of upside targets, and you know that we've changed the character to that upside. Right? And the reason that I say that we've changed the character to the upside is that we've come down here, right? We've then literally come. I'm going to go all the way down rather than fussing around, right, with the zigzags in between. And then what we do is we come up and we make a new higher high from over in this situation, right? I'm just going to draw something like this, and I'll change this to white, right? So in the grand scheme of things, because we've now taken that high up there, we could look at this and say, potentially, this was a sweep if we failed to stay above this level. So there's my high. We kind of did close once, and we come straight back into it. We currently rejecting from it, right? So in the grand scheme of things, the trade for me here right now would be a short type trade, right? Probably on the back of this, right? I'd be looking for targeting that and my stop loss being there, right? That's an ugly trade. That's not even a one-to-one type of setup. So for me, there's nothing on the table, right? And it's as simple as that. Now, these types of opportunities, right, and this type of working out is the type of thing that you can do, hour on hour. You can do, daily. You can set this up on the daily move to see where the big liquidity pots are. Step down to a 4 hour, step down to a 15. If you really want to take this load again, drop into a 5. But in the grand scheme of things, what you're doing is you're building a set of rules that allow you to trade the same way over and over and over and over again. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish this video like this for now, and then I'll do another video on the back of this in terms of like what next, where next, and kind of how next. Now, obviously, let's see how this one kind of plays itself out. And if we do come down here, I'll actually try to catch the move to the upside. And what I'll do then is I'll make another video on the back of that in terms of how I would enter that and kind of see that. So again, that will be probably the next video or the next but one video, if obviously I don't see this. In an ideal world, I'll try to catch this, and if I get it, I will record it, and I will obviously push this out. So I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.